Let's move on to the next topic in our ethics lecture, which is internet freedom. Now, for those of you who, like me, were born in the US and grew up spending most of their time in the US, um, we kind of take our internet access for granted. You can go and look up anything you want, for the most part. But that's not the case all over the world. Uh, Freedom House, which is it's a think tank, publishes this report every year that evaluates the freedom of various countries. Um, and we'll take a look at it here together. So I'll open this in a new tab. It's for the year 2020, and here we have the map of the whole world. And each country gets a score, and if we click into a country, we can see where that score comes from. There's obstacles to access, which is like how easy is it for someone to get onto the internet, like actually get an internet connection. You can imagine if a country were to say, oh, you have to apply for a permit and we have to approve you to be able to get Xfinity or some other internet provider, this would be very low. Then there's limits on content, which is to say, for example, maybe everyone can get an internet connection, but some content, when they try to access it, just doesn't exist, or it's blocked in their country. And finally, violations of user rights, which is thinking about once people get access to the internet and actually access content, how much do you track what they're doing? And how much does the government violate any other user rights? So you can see, looking at the US, actually have all these countries here, 77. Canada has an 87. And of course, this is an arbitrary metric. Australia 76, Japan 75, Estonia 94, so Iceland 95 even. So very little restriction on what can be accessed in Iceland, and few violations of user rights. But notice in some other countries, it's really not like that. And especially if we look at Russia, for example, which has many violations of user rights. And if we want to, you can dig in here and read why they give this score. What are the obstacles to access? And what are our what makes up this score? But especially interesting here, I'll point out, is China, which I believe will have the lowest score here. 17. Yes, so 10 out of 100. And again, this is a US funded think tank. But on here, they have the lowest score for 10 out of 100. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is. But some overall long-term trends that might be surprising for you. From this Freedom House's report, for the 10th consecutive year now, internet freedom in the world is declining. So it's either harder to get access to internet, harder to actually access content once you're on the internet, or harder to actually be able to use the internet because of violations of user rights. Maybe think about why that is. As the internet becomes more accessible, more people are coming online, they have smartphones, there's information that the government wants, that some governments may not want flowing around freely. And so now that everyone has internet access, or it's easier to get internet access or a phone, governments might be imposing more restrictions. And these are some quotes from this report about how social media platforms enable collection of data across the whole population. Everyone just voluntarily posts pictures of themselves on Facebook, and that's very convenient if you're trying to build a database of all of your citizens. There are companies that provide surveillance systems now for a country. This particular company, Semtian, even provides a national firewall product. So you can pay this company to set up a national firewall. So in China in particular, if we talk about this example, internet access is very heavily censored. So think about what websites you use the most every day. What comes to mind? Maybe YouTube you use a lot, maybe Facebook, Instagram. Here's a page on Wikipedia. So Google fully blocked. in mainland China. Not accessible. YouTube. Facebook is interesting, only partially blocked. But Wikipedia, all of Wikipedia is blocked. All of Reddit is blocked. All of Netflix is blocked. Like all of this content that you use, Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitch, all blocked. And it's interesting. The stuff that's unblocked is oftentimes because the company partners with China and provides the data that China asks these companies to provide. And you would think, maybe I'll stay off the internet. Maybe I'll just text, or I'll use the social media that is available. All of that is processed and filtered. There's even an article here about how the images that are sent in WeChat, which is a popular chat app in China, some images won't get through based on the text that's in that image. And you think, what happens? Okay, maybe I get my internet access taken away. It's a little more intense than that. Here, there's a story about that you can read about an internet user who ended up being detained for 7 days based on something they said in a WeChat chat, just like a WhatsApp chat or a GroupMe chat. And there's famously a doctor who was talking about COVID before it was a big thing, and he ended up being detained by police, and he was punished for what he was saying. And so I'll leave this question for you to think about and for us to talk about in class. But what do you think are the negatives of China's surveillance? And can you think of any positives? Are there any cases where this is actually useful, where you think it's worth it? And how do you feel it is net overall? Think about those questions and come to class and we'll discuss them.